chance that they're alive. You're going to dig. You're going to spend money. Are they really alive? I mean, they're probably dead. Soul your spirit and lets you see the unseen. Some of us might be absolute abortion restrictionists. The world is the way it is. Taking the breathalyzer and failing it as not taking the breathalyzer. It's a fight around Roe because Roe was so fake.
Welcome.
Hello.
To the Ever Living Podcast. We are your life-loving hosts, Cindy,
Jason.
And I'm Jessica. And I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. And we have a wonderful guest with us today. He is the managing editor of New Hampshire Journal. Please welcome Michael Graham.
Okay, no one said anything about being wonderful. I'm just hoping to be competent. If I can do competent, I will be very happy.
Okay.
Set the bar low.
Competent.
That's been my strategy. It's worked for me. It's very good.
So, Michael, what do you do at the New Hampshire Journal?
I tote the barge and lift the bale. That's my job. No, New Hampshire Journal is a news organization that's dedicated specifically to political news in the Granite State. We are the number one political news outlet in the state, I'm proud to say. And we do award-winning news and opinion, and we do a podcast, although not nearly as interesting as yours. And that's what we do. So we basically follow politicians around and listen to them to lie to us and then write their lies down and then try to explain which part, is the lie. So that's just another day. That's it.
Wow. That must be an interesting lifestyle for sure.
It's fine. I'm a news junkie from way back. If you look on my bookshelf behind me, you'll see the top row is almost all books by H.L. Mencken, the great 20th century journalist. And my oldest son's first name is Mencken. So if that doesn't make me a news hound, I don't know what will. And of course, Mencken is noted for many insightful comments, among them being democracy's the theory that the common man knows what he wants and deserves to get it good and hard. So at New Hampshire Journal, we try to keep track of how they're getting it good and hard.
Okay. Well, what have you learned about covering political news in New Hampshire?
It's a small state. I wrote for alt weekly newspapers back when they were super, more widely read, like the Hippo, now. Back in the day, there were quite a few alt newspapers around the country. And so I was the token non-liberal in their pages. And I ran campaigns for a while. So I saw I had fun with the news and I, helped make the news. And one of the things that rarely happened there would not be direct blowback on me from the people that I was writing about. And in New Hampshire, everywhere you go, because there's only like 13 people in the whole state, you keep running into the people that you wrote about. And some of them are not happy. And some of them make sure you know that they're not happy. So that's what's different about it for me.
Then you're uninvited to their cookout.
Well, I don't know that I was ever invited to cookout, but if I can just keep them from trying to back their car up over me, in front of the State House, that's good. If we can eschew physical violence, that would be a fine standard to uphold.
Awesome.
Very interesting.
Well, one thing I've always wondered, Michael, I get your daily emails, and how do you get your quotes? I've always wondered, because you have really good quotes, and I figure no person can read that much to keep up with that much. So how do you filter them? How do you get them?
Well, I got to give credit. The quotes are an aggregation of comments, usually in the previous 24 hours. And, so give credit to Kevin Landrigan, the union leader, and to Anne Marie Timmons and Josh Rogers at New Hampshire Public Radio and the other outlets. They're out reporting, and we consume as much news as we can. It's part of the news game as you read everybody else's stuff too, make sure you're not missing something, et cetera. And we don't do a lot of breaking news. We are more the political stories and analysis. And so our quote section is the most popular section of the newsletter, our award-winning newsletter every day, which you can get by going to nhjournal.com. And there's a little box right there. Just click and sign up. It is absolutely free. And it's a good way to kind of let people know what folks are thinking about the issues. And some quotes are just dead on. When the former chair of the New Hampshire Democratic Party came out after Joe Biden dropped out of the, I'm sorry, when he just chose not to run in the primary here. And Democrats were complaining that they had to do a write-in because he wouldn't even allow his name to appear on the ballot. The former chairman of the Democratic Party, Kathy Sullivan, said, "Suck it up, Buttercup." And that just really summarized the attitude that her party had about their primary voters. So you find a great quote like that, it says a lot more than just the 3 or 4 words on the page.
That's a song, right? Suck it up, Buttercup.
I don't know if there was a song, but there was definitely a Buttercup. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm curious, what has been like the most, I don't know if you've been doing this for so long, but what would you say is the most interesting story that you've covered recently, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the big picture for me that I absolutely find fascinating is the disconnect in New Hampshire between the national climate of a lot of heat and passion. And of course, when you're dealing with issues like life issues, there's always been a lot of heat and passion. You look at the progressive left in the Democratic Party, you look at the MAGA base, and all of this emotion, and you certainly see it if you're on social media. But then you look at who the candidates are in New Hampshire. And this has been true. The first cycle I really covered was 2018. So everything I tell people all the time, even though I was in Massachusetts doing talk radio, nothing personal. Massachusetts pays no attention to New Hampshire whatsoever. We come here for, cheap booze, cigarettes, and some skiing, and then we go right back home. That's was our attitude when I lived in Mass. And so I assumed that you would see that passion and those, divides, that activity in the candidates and in the people running, and that would be part of the elections. And you see it right now in the 2026 cycle where, you look around the country and progressives are like setting themselves on fire, and people who are on the far left, I love Hamas, they're winning primaries. And then you look at New Hampshire, and who do you have? Stephanie Shaheen, Maura Sullivan, and Chris Pappas. The beginning of one of the most boring cocktail parties you will ever go to in your entire life. Doesn't mean they aren't fine people. Doesn't mean they don't care about New Hampshire. But where's the progressive stuff? And then you look on the Republican side, and Lily Tang Williams is out there, and she's a true MAGA candidate. But other than that, where's the MAGAs? Where's Governor Kelly Ayotte, like her or hate her, she's not part of a fringe conversation. And Cindy Warmington, her almost certain Democratic opponent, no one would put her in the same group as Mondami or Graham Plattner over in Maine, my favorite candidate of the year, because he simultaneously is a communist and B, has a Nazi tattoo. It is hard to simultaneously hold on to your communism and your Nazism at the same time. And Graham Plattner is doing that. We have none of that in New Hampshire. So that's to me one of it's been true, by the way, the entire time. I keep looking for a progressive candidate to break out. It was before my time, but I'm familiar with the story of Carol Shea Porter. She showed up at a George W. Bush event in 2006 and got thrown out. I mean, she was very vocal opponent of the Iraq War, and she was able to turn that into a defeat of a popular incumbent Republican member of Congress, Jeb Bradley, in that 2006 wave. Well, we're likely to have a similar wave this year. President Trump's poll numbers are very low, et cetera, et cetera. Where's the Carol Shea Porter, of the Democrats? There's not a lot of it. And so that's, to me, because I'm a political junkie, I'm fascinated by that big trend. If you're talking about the specific stories, there's too many to mention, from State Senator Tim Magoo being kicked out of the State Senate Republican caucus, which has never happened, as far as I can tell, anytime ever, to the fights over education choice and having people who sent their own children to private school trying to fight to keep you from being able to use choice to send your kids to private school. And there's a million stories in between.
I guess wanting to keep private schools very private.
Extremely, extremely private. By the way, how fascinating is it that Stephanie Shaheen's 4 kids, including her son who was in prep school, are all able to max out to her congressional campaign. I mean, I got to tell you, when I was in high school, if someone said to me, I want $7,000 for a congressional race, are you kidding me? I'm trying to get $7 together for beer. In fact, it's not even really beer. It's Schaefer Light. Does that even count as beer? I'm not even sure. I think it's like beer adjacent. So that's fascinating politics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Begin.
So I've left you all in stunned silence. So this is a lot like talking to my wife.
No, I
What
think
about
it's
the free state people? Are they changing New Hampshire?
Which people?
The free staters?
It's interesting.
The Free State,
I will
like
say
the more liberty Republican
there's
thing?
legislation that they have
Oh,
numbers
no.
in the House to impact. And so, for example, there was a fight about changing the DUI laws here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has one of the highest rates of people who, when you pull them because they're all over the road, they simply won't take a breathalyzer because the state has the same punishment for taking the breathalyzer and failing it as not taking the breathalyzer. So people are like, wait, I can avoid a DUI bust. I can not have this on my insurance. I'll do that. Well, why has it been that way? It's because there are free staters, libertarians, people who are true believers in individual liberty, who take it to the point that they think making you blow into a straw into the thing is a Fourth Amendment violation of the Constitution. Your right to be safe from searches and seizures. You're being searched without a warrant is their argument. And so they ended up having a compromise. They wanted to make it a year for refusing as opposed to the 6 months if you take it. And they ended up with a 9-month margin. They also, if you're a first offender, the judge can possibly drop your time without a license to 3 months if you get in a program. In other words, you're a person who had one glass of wine too many somewhere, and the judge makes that decision as opposed to someone who's just a drunk idiot on the road. So, but my point is that debate only occurred because there were a significant number of free staters, libertarians who said, no, we know everyone hates DUI. We hate DUI, but you have to keep the principle in mind. And there are plenty of states where those conversations just don't happen. Trust me, in California, no one is saying, I wonder if the government's going too far. That's what they're saying is, how can the government go farther? Let's go even further. Let's go. So that's one of the fascinating things about New Hampshire.
Yeah. Do you see trends in pro-life news or pro-abortion trends, or what's your view on that?
So let's start with this. We are in the post-Dobbs world, and Dobbs changed everything. I have been writing about and advocating for and running political campaigns for pro-life Republicans for years, but back when I was a political strategist back in my misspent youth. And one of the things that was always there was Roe, and Roe set these boundaries. It's simply they said to people who wanted to publicly support total abolition of abortion, they could say that publicly because it didn't matter, because Roe was going to do what it was going to do. On the other side, people who wanted to say there should be no restrictions. Well, Roe put in some guardrails too, and you could only go so far before you would run into issues with Roe. And so Dobbs has changed everything, and I think Dobbs is one of the greatest Supreme Court decisions of all time. First of all, because Roe was so bad, and I don't mean bad. It's funny. I had Andrew Valinsky, the progressive liberal, on my podcast not long ago, and I tried to explain to him, do you understand the problem with Roe isn't abortion? I mean, that's a separate issue. Roe was just garbage analysis. It was garbage law. I mean, there's trimester. Where the heck is a trimester in the Constitution? It was crazy. It was like it was the legal equivalent of two guys stoned on pot trying to put IKEA furniture together at 2 a.m. I mean, somehow you got a chair, but none of the things. So huzzah that a horrible decision was thrown out, and huzzah that the court reaffirmed that we're going to do law in the Supreme Court. And the U.S. Constitution does not say that citizens of New Hampshire or New Mexico or New Jersey can't have the laws about abortion that they want. They can have laws about dentistry, and they have laws about licensing hair cuttery. And so, of course, they can have laws about abortion. That's how it's supposed to work. So that you have to put that as the backdrop behind everything. For New Hampshire, However, Dobbs was largely meaningless because New Hampshire was already one of the most pro-abortion states in the country. New Hampshire has politicians who are aggressive in their bragging about, yes, I want abortion to be legal at all times up until the moment of birth. There's no embarrassment. They don't do the, well, oh, there's it, sure. So that's that's the lay of the land. You add in the fact that New Hampshire is one of the most secular states in the country. The second or third lowest rates of belief in God, church attendance, whatever. It's a very secular place, very different from South Carolina, where I grew up, where when someone said, "What are you?" they didn't mean Italian or Greek or Irish. They meant Methodist, Baptist, or Catholic, except, of course, there are no Catholics in South Carolina. So that's, that's a different background. So with all of that, kind of spreading out the lay of the land, we have a law in the state that, bans abortion in the final weeks. I believe that it very closely reflects the views of the voters in New Hampshire, not the people, because there are a lot of people who don't vote, but the people who vote, they are never going to support a total ban on abortion, and they are very unhappy with the idea of unlimited abortion. It's where we are. And so there actually was this huge win that almost no one has commented on. In fact, now that we're talking, I'm like, I gotta write a piece about this for New Hampshire Journal, which was having New Hampshire join I think it was 46 other states that report abortion statistics. It is hard for people who are not from New England in particular, and New Hampshire specifically, to understand this state is so culturally pro-abortion in its political class that it was viewed as an attack on women's rights to simply report how many people came in for abortions, how old were they, what point in the abortion in the trimester, the pregnancy did take place. This is the most boring data that almost every other state collects, and here Planned Parenthood was able to fight it off because you're a crazy right-wing pro-life nutburger. You want to do math. And so given that that's the climate that you're in, the fact that that passed this year and no one even know, I'm saying it was like, it didn't even make a headline. Didn't even noticed. In part because Roe's gone. So the fake thin ice we were all dancing on is gone. We're now on solid land of, laws, you pass them, stuff happens. And so the heat of the constant fight around Roe, because Roe was so fake, everyone knew they had to keep lying and faking to keep the ball moving, allowed the temperature, now that's gone, to level off. Planned Parenthood made the little squawk, but it wasn't a big deal. This is where we are. So you can say it's a victory that there are restrictions on abortion that were passed by the legislature. You can say it's a defeat because, it's the number of abortions has probably not changed. We obviously don't know. We don't have the numbers. You can say it's a victory that we now are going to get those numbers, but you can say it's a defeat that there's no movement and there's no sign on the horizon of any interest in movement towards limiting the number of abortions that happen in New Hampshire.
Yeah. And how do you see the news media in New Hampshire reporting on pro-life? Are they, do they have a bias?
You've already left the media out because you use the phrase pro-life. You will not find the phrase pro-life at New Hampshire Public Radio, New Hampshire Public Television, the Boston Globe, the Concord Monitor, AP. You will not find the phrase pro-life. You are anti-choice.
So is that just New Hampshire or is that all of America?
Well, I don't care about the rest of America, although it is all of America, but it's New Hampshire. I mean, there's nothing stopping New Hampshire Public Radio from using the phrase pro-life, which served us well for, whatever it was, 40 years. They just choose. They're not being forced to choose this. It's what they want to say. The media want to say that any restrictions on abortion are anti-woman hate. And that's what they're going to say in every story they cover.
Is there anything that the people of New Hampshire can do to change what is being written or reported or commented on? Is there anything that? No.
There's nothing to do.
Hey, well.
Sorry.
Kind of going off of that though, is there any how do you think we advance now that the Dobbs, Dobbs happened, right? And now that we're beyond that, and I definitely would agree with you that I think that initial like shock from the other side,
Exactly.
the freaking out has kind of died down a bit at this point. How do we move the ball forward at this point?
So,
like, what do we do now?
Let me
to advance
throw in some
strategy?
politics real quick. Let me throw in some politics before we get to that. One of the reasons why Republicans had a mediocre election in 2022, which was a midterm during a very unpopular president, Joe Biden, inflation was back up into 9%. Holy moly. It's like ancient times. What are we, Venezuela? Republicans should have just killed it. And right in the middle of that, Dobbs happened. And that shows you the power of that issue for the base of the Democratic Party, which the most numerous group among Democrats are affluent, college-educated white women, also known in my family as crazy people. And I'm kidding, my white wife, who's whatever. No, she talks about it. She's like, I cannot believe how many of my friends are crazy. Like they're just not. They think Trump is coming to their house to drag them in bed, and that is a powerful motor for the Democratic vote generating machine. And in 2022, it just took off. So now we're going to have a traditional midterm. And unless something happens that's the political equivalent of that, I don't know what that would be. Something with the Second Amendment or something. Republicans are probably going to have a bad cycle. But that just points out what a big deal Dobbs was. It changed the trajectory of politics. And so, but you're right. And as I said at the time, because there were a lot of Republican activists who were grousing, I was not grousing. I said, I'll take a couple of bad election cycles if you can end Roe. I mean, ending Roe is like a fantasy. I mean, I'm so happy. But I said to them at the time, don't worry, because every year what's going to happen is affluent, white, college-educated women are going to wake up in New Hampshire and abortion is just going to be there. It's not going to have changed. It turns out Roe wasn't the bulwark that they needed. Everything's fine. And so every year the temperature goes down. So what can the pro-life movement do? You can either accept the status quo, which is, a 24-week abortion ban and, just live with that. Or you can try to move it down the field. And I think that the only strategy that has any hope of working is persuasion, is going back to the earliest days. There was a time, my mom is a Republican activist down in Lexington County, South Carolina. She was part of the Christian Coalition from the earliest days. And she organized in her neighborhood, everyone, our church, based on one issue, which was life. And they worked and they worked and they worked and they worked. And every time they worked, the courts stepped in. And so there was a movement to say, but that's the way it's going to be. Let's go to the courts. And then the Federalist Society started working, and then we ended up getting rid of Roe. So that's great, but that was the road you're on. I think pro-lifers need to go back and relearn the muscle memory and rebuild the muscle mass of persuasion. And persuasion is not screaming at people, baby killer. Persuasion is not holding up images of aborted fetuses, even though they are 100% accurate. They're true. They're not fake. They're not AI. They're just not persuasive. And so the strategy needs to be, how do I get you, now that Roe is gone and you don't have to lie and pretend you're not allowed to think about what an abortion is, because otherwise it'll go, the right to any abortion will go away, and we're going to, suddenly live in a, in a theocracy. Now that I know that's not true, let's have a conversation and let's talk about what abortion really is, why it exists, the problem that it solves, because it does solve a problem. The argument is at a horrific cost. So what are the problems? What are the other solutions? How can we, you're going to have to start persuading these people. And interestingly, the group that I think is the most persuadable and potentially workable here is young men. Go back and look at your data. Young men have always been the most pro-abortion group. Guys 30 and younger. Why? Because they get to have a problem solved.
Because they don't want the responsibility.
Yeah.
And they were told over and over again, you're supposed to think this. Oh, okay. You're not allowed to think about what that thing is inside this woman's body. You're not allowed to think about biology. You're not allowed to show common sense. We order you. By the way, talk about one of my favorite stories. In 2024, the Democratic candidates for governor were Joyce Craig, mayor of Manchester, former executive council Cindy Warmington, and this guy from Newmarket named John Kuiper. And they're on the WMER debate. And this, of course, was before, this was in the midst of the debate about, is there going to be any restriction on abortion or not? Democrats' position was no restrictions. And so so in this Democratic primary debate, the question comes up, Warmington answers it, Craig answers it, they go to John Kuiper, and John Kuiper actually says, as a man, I'm not allowed to have an opinion on this issue. And I just, wow. Yeah. And you want to be my governor? No, I don't think so. Yeah. So that's a group of people that you can say, hey, think about what this is. Think about what's going on. Think about, if you want to, the biological parts. This is your child. If you've gotten a woman pregnant, if you two have come together and made a baby, think about it theologically. Think about it social justice standpoint. I'm from the libertarian wing of the party. I have a simple position. I support life because the fundamental liberty is the right to be alive. I'm a true pro-lifer. I oppose the death penalty. People who support the death penalty are not pro-life. They're anti-abortion. No one should be killed if there's any other option available. And so, because life is too precious. Life is not mine. I can't give it. The state can't give it. The state should not be taking it away. That's an argument that you could, and if you start moving those male numbers, you think, oh my gosh, you got to start with women. No, don't start with women. Are already finding this out. Remember, how did the pro-life shift happen? It happened from women coming home with pictures from inside of their own body. That's what did it. That was the persuasion. It persuaded women. They could not hold on to their fantasy that what was inside of them was some other thing that wasn't a human life. Yeah. And
like a couple of cells
But persuasion is the only way. Yeah. And it's going to be very tough in New Hampshire because one of the common ways to get people to think about the consequences of their behavior is to connect it to morality. And morality is often connected to theology and to a belief in a higher power that judges your actions. And you've got so few believers in the state. That's a small pool to draw from.
Yeah. Well, Michael, also, do you think people today in New Hampshire, are there people that don't want to be persuaded? Have they already been told this is what you should think? This is what we all think. So you better think it, and maybe just shut down. Like they can't leave the group. They can't be persuaded. They think it's better to just,
as the saying goes, they need a permission structure to leave the group. Someone's got to give them permission to get out of the group. But of course, peer pressure. I mean, why does everyone hate Trump? Because you're supposed to hate Trump. How many of those people who hate Trump don't really think that much about, don't even follow politics? They don't care. I mean, do you think the people watching Jimmy Kimmel hate Trump? They're not paying attention to Trump. They know more about who's on Survivor Island Rose date show thing that my wife watches. I don't understand. Than they know about the president. They just know you're supposed to hate Trump. Well, same thing. Good people are pro-choice and bad people are anti-abortion. That's the paradigm.
Yeah. What's interesting, Michael, is on the persuasion thing, I was at a hearing recently where, the other side, they had their signs up. I don't remember what was on them, probably coat hangers and, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was just talking to some friends in the hallway and ended up talking to one of the ladies there. I don't think she knew who I was. And because of what she talked about. And as we were talking, she said, well, I just can't stomach all these women dying because of these abortion laws from miscarriages and things. And I said, well, actually, there's no state in the country where miscarriage treatment is illegal. Even in places like Texas, the laws, it only applies to a living child. And we were talking some more about it. And eventually she said, if it was just that, I would be fine with banning abortion after 15 weeks. Mm-hmm. And this is the lady holding the sign in the hallway. So I think, I think intuitively a lot of people kind of are agreeing with us that there is something worth protecting at that point. But I think, unfortunately, some of the lies, like you heard Joyce Craig in 2024 saying, we can't restrict abortion because I had a miscarriage.
Right.
And it's like, no, there's nothing in any state that restricts treating a miscarriage. So I think even just getting out the truth helps our side.
The truth, making arguments, telling stories that people can relate to. When you look at European abortion laws, they are right in the neighborhood of the woman you were speaking to, around 15 weeks. It's just, it seems to make sense. You could argue that Catholicism taught for a long time that you had this first trimester period, and then the notion of quickening, whatever. It's like, humans are where they are, but right now we're involved in politics. And Democrats have done a very good job of wrapping the idea that you are a political Neanderthal if you support any restrictions on abortion. And the only reason to do it is because you hate women. You want them to wear those, what are those outfits, the nun outfits that you see?
The Handmaid.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, the Handmaid's Tale. Thank you. I once again, I haven't watched the show, haven't read the book, but that's the argument they want, is that those are the only two options. And it can't just be, hey, there's something inside your body that is beyond dispute human and beyond dispute alive. Those are not in dispute. So the question is, what do you want to do about it? And if you say to people, I want to force a woman to take that pregnancy all the way to a successful birth, regardless of how she feels about it, they're going to go, whoa, whoa. But if you say, I want to, after halfway through that living human getting to the point where it's going to be outside its mom's body, I want to go ahead and end it. Whoa, whoa. And that's so the opportunity to persuade people by having them see this, that there is this balance, that you don't have to say women have, even though some of us might be absolute abortion restrictionists, the world is the way it is. This is politics. Yeah. This is not the kingdom of Michael, and this is so you say, if you can get people to say, these two extremes are not on the table, help me make the table make more sense. Then maybe you can move people. But once again, you're trying to do it in one of the toughest places in the country by doing it in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I like the point that, I like what you brought up about trying to persuade men, though, because that's been my experience as well. Like, so I used to work for Students for Life, and I would do a lot of debating students on college campuses. And I found that was the demographic that I was able to persuade the most, was men. And I mean, I think that that's a demographic. Women are just, it's going to be hard to change their mind on the issue. Especially just because they've been, fed all of this stuff from the media for so long. But
pregnancy can be pretty powerful for persuading.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Women who become pregnant, who've never been pregnant before, it definitely has an impact on their view. I mean,
that's fair.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who had a very casual attitude about abortion until they became pregnant. And then they have that moment where they're having an experience. Maybe they're feeling their future, sidekick moving around, whatever. And it dawns on them, you would kill this. Like you would come in and kill this. You think that's reasonable? And it has an impact. Look, there is no other issue that we treat this way. Maybe transgender might be close, but no other issue that we treat this way. If we were all standing around a coal mine, there'd just been a cave in, and people going, I wonder if anyone's alive down there. I don't know. I don't hear anything. If someone said, I'm not sure anyone's alive, let's leave. Everyone go, oh my God, you're a horrible monster. If there's any chance that they're alive, you're going to dig, you're going to spend money, you're going to dig them up. Are they really alive? I mean, they're probably dead. Just no one would ever take that stance. But when it comes to a child inside its mom's body, it's like, you got to prove you're alive, or we're not, no protections for you. I mean, what?
Or like you can choose if the coal miner lives or dies if you are the parent or something.
Right. Or if you don't want them to. But my point is, we always side on, if you're not sure, protect. If there's a medicine. We don't put it on the market. It might hurt somebody, even though it might help other people. We're not sure. Put in seatbelts. We've got to protect until it's a kid inside his body, and the kid can be in there like, tap dancing and do Hamlet, and people, I don't know, it's not good enough. It's not alive. Get out of here. Right?
Yeah,
I think bizarre.
Politics has become like a package deal. Like if you want to shop, let's say a metaphor, like you want to shop at this supermarket where we all shop, you have, every time you go, you have to buy peas, broccoli, carrots, and asparagus, whether you like it or not. You have to buy it. The whole package, peas, broccoli, carrot, asparagus. And then someone's like, I don't want the asparagus. I want to be pro-life. Like, no, no, you can't. Yeah. You can't. Otherwise, you can't be part of our supermarket. You're dead to us.
You're absolutely right. And it's hard to see how that changes. But then again, it was hard to see in, if you look at the numbers on pro-life and pro-choice in the 80s, the country was like 2-1, approaching 3-1 pro-choice. And then once again, technology changed, information changed, the attempt to change people's mind happened, the pro-life movement happened. And so things move. But what can you do today? What's the task in front of you? It's what can I do to persuade persuadables today? Think about it. Take a fresh look at it, as opposed to the screaming and yelling on the sidewalk, waving the image of the bloody fetus, which I just don't, you're not in the persuasion game. You're in the moral preening and self-righteous game. You're basically a Pharisee with a sign saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. You're not saying anything about how can I persuade you?
Yes. And let's change hearts and minds through.
Thought I'd work in that little biblical reference there for you, since it's the Ever Living podcast.
All right. Well,
awesome.
We're approaching the end of the episode. So, Michael, did you bring a Bible verse to share with our listeners today?
A question that I used to get all the time living in South Carolina, and my father, who's a lay teacher, asks all the time, and I didn't even have to think about it. I don't know why, but since I was a kid, Hebrews 11:1 has been my favorite Bible verse. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. And one of the things I like about it is it really lays out the divide between the people who believe in a higher power, the metaphysical, and those who don't. There are people who just don't believe. The H.L. Mencken I mentioned earlier, a lifelong prominent atheist, swam in religious waters, wrote powerful interviews with people of deep faith. And he just said, I just don't have the believing gene, whatever it takes for you to see that there may be something beyond the physical. And there it is. Faith is that thing, that substance, that thing that interacts with you. If you can be a believer, if you can be a person of faith, it's the thing that interacts with your soul, your spirit, and lets you see the unseen. And without faith, you might as well be in a dark room. It could be a dark room full of furniture, and you're not even going to trip over it because you don't have the ingredient, which is faith. So I think it's a very, it says a lot about how we come and how people without faith come to being where they are.
Mm-hmm.
True.
So gotta
absolutely
have faith in God, what is true, and hope for what we don't see yet. So we're gonna have hope for New Hampshire,
even in tasks that seem insurmountable.
Yeah.
Wow,
absolutely.
That's a lot of faith.
People.
that's a whole lot of faith to
live free and hope.
Exactly,
or just live.
True. Awesome. Well,
thank you, Michael,
thank you so much,
for
Michael,
coming
for
by.
joining us.
Yeah, this is such a treat that you stopped by and joined us for the podcast.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you for reading the New Hampshire Journal newsletter every day. And we have our content at nhjournal.com. And if there's ever a story that's happening that people need to know about, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Bye,
next
everyone.
week, everybody.
See you next week.
Be ever living.
Bye.
God bless you.
Thank you for listening to the Ever Living podcast, a podcast by New Hampshire Right-to-Life, New Hampshire's oldest and most active pro-life organization. You can learn more about our work and learn how to get involved at www.nhrtl.org. If you would like to donate to our mission, you can make a donation at www.nhrtl.org/donate. See you next week. May God bless you and be very near to you, and may you be ever living.